there we go. So, Nori, you're gonna hit off, and Jonathan? Or should I give a very short intro what it is again about the challenge team and Catalyst Circle and whatnot? Yeah? Short says yes. Okay, when Short says yes, I'm gonna do it. So this initiative at least, was figured out by the problem sensing which was made on the very beginning of the Catalyst Circle by the community. And so the community said one of the biggest problems what we have actually in the community is the funding mechanism what we have. Right now we have the funding round, which happens each 3 months. And for a lot of projects, it doesn't really guarantee, let's say, a sustainable base where you really can run your project, because it's quite difficult to, let's say, hope on each 3 months some hypothetical funds which may become or may become not. So we said, okay, we have to figure out a solution somehow. So a rapid funding mechanism. And we said, okay, but how can we implement it? Because the Catalyst Circle don't want to make any decisions. It's much more that we want to empower the community to develop this decisions. And so last week we announced the recruitment and said, hey, are there some people who want to apply for a challenge team to submit a challenge in Fund 6, especially for rapid funding mechanisms, to sign up as a challenge team? Challenge team, your work will be to steward this challenge when the challenge is voted in Fund 6. The challenge will take place in Fund 7. And your job will be to steward this challenge through Fund 7. So documentate, track, and report back to the community what is happening in this challenge. And how the challenge exactly look like, it's still a draft. So it will be up to you also to formulate, define this challenge. And yes, so everything is still on the very beginning. The team is not set up yet. The challenge is not defined yet. We have somehow a goal, which means we want to submit the challenge with focus on rapid funding mechanisms. But everything in between, it's up to you to figure out. And the only thing what we do, the Catalyst Circle will support you with everything needed, wanted, wished, whatnot. I missed something?
No,
You're good, Felix. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Excellent. So I guess we need to start looking at some of the candidates who I guess are all in the room. So we've got, do we have Len? No, Len. But we do have some place to go by the list. So Alison, you're first on my list. Hi. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well. I'm happy to be here.
I saw you getting into the chat, so that was good.
Yeah. Well, I had a long unenforced absence from Catalyst and Cardano, and I'm really excited to be back. Not unenforced, what's the word I'm looking for? Not chosen, enforced absence.
Enforced absence, okay. Well, very welcome back.
Thank you.
So, yeah, why don't you tell us a bit about yourself, about your experiences and what you're excited about getting involved with this rapid funding?
Sure. Yeah, so by birth and nationality, I'm American, but I've been living in Switzerland now for 1.5 years. I've been working, I've done a lot of different things, but mostly finance. And I was a corporate banker in the US for about a decade before I realized that all of the exciting world-changing things were happening in blockchain, not in banking. And so when my family moved to Switzerland and the crypto valley, it was the perfect opportunity to pivot to blockchain. I discovered Cardano right before COVID and our lockdown here. And so that was perfect timing. I spent a lot of time with Charles Hoskinson videos during our lockdown and just was completely hooked on all things Cardano. And it's been a rocky road for me in Switzerland, but I have been looking for a way to use my finance skills. And so I'm still not exactly clear on the challenge team idea, but I've been, I should say, following Catalyst actually since the very beginning. But when I saw that there was a call for people with finance skills, I was really eager to raise my hand and offer I really have extensive background in finance and some accounting, to see if it would be helpful and useful and fit in with the team and the ideas.
Perfect. Yeah. So the challenge team, in my mind, are really going to form an investigative role almost, and a steering role around these challenges. So it's quite a crucial position to get in, find out which projects are really going to be meeting the community's needs and desires. So you're going to have to be ears and eyes and hands involved. So what sort of I mean, everyone's willing to ask questions as well if you want to find out a bit about anybody who's taken a turn to speak. But yeah, perhaps what unique things do you think or what are some of the tough things that you've managed to overcome in your career that would be really useful in this sort of role?
Oh, wow.
Trying to put you on the spot a bit.
I don't think I was expecting an interview style question, but I am ready for the challenge.
Don't see it like an interview.
Why am I going first anyway?
Yeah. That was the Zoom
Okay.
gods. You were put top left. Sorry about that.
Okay. Tough things that I've overcome in my career. I have the perfect story. I'll explain my enforced absence from Catalyst and how overcoming it is a metaphor for my drive as an entrepreneur. So I referenced that I was American. So I moved here largely because of my husband's job, and that's relevant because I came on his visa. So I discovered shortly after moving here, right as I participated in Fund Zero. I'm really proud to say that I was part of the focus group, the first 6 people that worked with Dor on the initial Catalyst launch. And I was so excited to dive in. And then I discovered that because of my permit status, not only could I not work, but I couldn't volunteer. Switzerland labor laws are crazy. And I couldn't do anything that even appeared to be work. And because my family intends to stay here, I suddenly had to drop out of absolutely everything Cardano related that might be considered work, including even, people kindly asked me to appear on podcasts. I've done all kinds of work to understand proof of stake and how staking works on Cardano. And I really have a lot of communication and education abilities that I was excited to deploy for the community. And I formed my own company, by the way, I should add, Crypto Alley Consulting. Quirk of Switzerland, I was able to own a company in Switzerland, but then not allowed to work for it. So about a year ago, I was pretty devastated when I had to stop doing everything. So that didn't end my dream. I kept pushing and looking for a way to overcome that pretty significant hurdle. And fast forward 12 months later, I was able to, first of all, get a job. To convince somebody to hire me in spite of my American status. So that was one hurdle overcome. But even more importantly, illegally, I should add, I was legally employed. Even more importantly, through a lot of research and due diligence and actually quite a lot of good fortune on my side, I was able to find some family connections and apply for Austrian citizenship. So in spite of not having ever lived in Austria, and my German is not very good for anyone here who's a native speaker, I was able to get Austrian citizenship. And so that has given me the permission to now do whatever I want as an entrepreneur. So I tell that story because it's really so special for me to be back in the Catalyst community, and wanted to illustrate my creativity and my drive and my inability to let seemingly insurmountable obstacles block me from getting something done. And that is exactly the passion and the enthusiasm and the drive that I want to bring to Catalyst.
Super. That is, I know I've had issues with visas and things like that in the past, and with my employees, and it's a horrible place to be. So congratulations. Nori, go ahead.
So thanks for coming, Allison, and speaking with us. I would love to know if you have any ideas or what drove you to want to be part of the committee to look at alternative funding methods. Do you see existing issues with the current funding or a need for more faster funding, or where do you hope this whole alternative funding challenge goes? What is your vision there?
Well, I will be completely honest with you and say I don't really understand what is meant by rapid funding or alternative funding. So I can tell you I have just saw the chat. I have quite a lot, I mean, really significant finance skills. So when you talk about funding, cash flow forecasting, cash flow projecting, being able to look at a model and understand the connection between cash and reality, and actually from a very strategic standpoint, thinking about what do we want to accomplish? That's great. I'm really passionate about ideas, but how do you link that to the boring, dollars and cents or francs or ADA that it's necessary to actually bring that into a reality? But to answer your specific question, I don't know. Can you tell me more about what you mean by alternative funding mechanisms and rapid funding mechanisms?
Bravo. Sorry.
Yeah, right. Sure.
I think the purpose of this challenge is to find ways of getting money to teams faster. Right now, if a team comes up with a great idea and has to wait for the next funding round and then to get funded, it could be like 3 or more months before money actually starts to flow in. And that can be detrimental to some types of involvement where people need to make a living or they don't have the financial ability to just work for 3 months without getting paid. So this is,
Sure.
I think, a way of accelerating that and having different ways of getting money to people sooner if the community decides that there's value in doing that.
So is the idea then, so there's the whole architecture of Catalyst of, the iteration on proposing and reviewing and voting. Is the idea to develop a separate stream of funds that would be available, perhaps as follow-on grants for people who are successful in their initial proposal? Is that the goal?
I think that you open a little bit Pandora's box, because on the oversight, yeah, okay, let's develop some rapid funding mechanism sounds. Yeah, okay, cool. But yeah, exactly what you say. It directly comes to the governance layer as well. How is it reporting? How does it all look like? Is it included in the Catalyst system itself? It's an alternative funding voting system next to Catalyst, coexisting to the actual system what we have. And all this beautiful stuff is what we have to explore now. There aren't any set definitions yet. So it would be up to the challenge team to look on what is feasible, how much risk brings it with it as well for the whole system, how to start, how to evolve.
I see. Yeah, well, that's really interesting because the starting point for me, well, the first question I would ask is, who are the projects that are struggling with the 3-month funding cycle? Because it seems like, maybe just to be very broad, you could have 2 types of entrepreneurs: those who are doing it as a side job, and so they're not dependent on funds from Catalyst for their full-time income, and those who are planning to make Catalyst funding or community funding their full-time income. And it's that second group, I think, that would suffer from the uncertainty of the 3-month cycle.
Exactly, yes. Because right now you can say that the funding system of Catalyst mostly functions as a Kickstarter for projects, but later to really keep them on a run, on a sustainable run, as a project who really wants to gain, let's say, a sustainable and an independent, well, not independent, but a healthy base, you can't rely on this 3 months funding system.
Yeah, so I mean, my first, just off the top of my head now with a little better understanding, perhaps there would be a way to create a challenge in Catalyst that would be for full-time proposers who intend to work full-time. And it would be a deeper proposal, because then you would have to sketch out a longer, 1 to 3 year proposal and request a budget and then indicate milestones. And so I think you could have the whole project approved, but the funds released upon the achievement of the milestones that are outlined in the original proposal.
Yeah, I love those ideas. It's really good. And I think that's the sort of activity that it will be a case of, you know, problem sensing in the community. We've done some already, and you've picked up on a couple of those things that are really important to people. You know, people want to get into this community to be full time. They don't want to dip in their toe. They want to get involved, and that's the challenge at the moment. Is that the funding pattern just doesn't suit that approach. You have to be, you kind of have to have a life belt all the time. So this rapid funding is really going to try and solve that. And so, yeah, spotting that, drawing out how to make teams and projects survive quickly, whilst also gauging from the wider Ada-holder community, you know, how do we fund this? How do we mix up our model, not risking our precious community treasury, whilst also getting the best results and providing sustainable livelihoods for people. So
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's I have a much better understanding now. I don't know if I've contributed much, but I'm excited. I'm even more excited about the opportunity, if that's worth mentioning.
Definitely.
It was a perfect start with you, at least, Alison, because you asked exactly the right questions. So the other candidates, they don't have to ask anymore.
Yeah.
So
you set the stage well.
Exactly. Thanks a lot.
I love asking questions. That is
But that's an important part of running a challenge team, I think. So it's good.
Yeah.
Ochio,
It looks like Ochio has a question.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hi.
Oh, excellent. Just a quick comment to Alison. I have a dream project of creating a decentralized company, but that's not the conversation now. I've just looked at the application form for become a challenge team member. The list of funds, the two that interest me, and it's two, and I've got so many options going on now. But the distributed decision making and Atala Prism, and I think Atala Prism is the favorite. Sorry,
they're a little off the topic, because this is not what we are speaking about in this conversation. Here we are speaking about the candidates which signed up for a challenge team for rapid funding mechanisms. And for what you're speaking about, they're the room where Stephen Lockhart is hosting the challenge settings. This might fit much better to your questions.
Yeah. No. Okay. Right. Okay. I'll come back to you. Yeah. Move on.
Perfect. And sorry, I didn't want it to be ungentle, but we try to keep it a little bit short by time.
I know what this conversation is about, but I was sort of building up to it. But I'll get my brain more together. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent. So any other questions from anybody, or shall we bring in another applicant?
Yes. I see some who signed up. Jarvis, Tyler, Len. Who wants to go over?
Yeah, let's have a volunteer. We didn't give Alison the chance, but Jarvis, excellent. So Jarvis, oh, we can't hear you actually. Is it just me or is it everybody?
No, for everybody, I think.
Okay, tech issues. No, still up. Perhaps we can come back to you in a second. Yeah, right. Keep trying. Anybody else want to grab the limelight?
Sure. I'll go.
Superb.
Yeah. Good. I'm doing well. So I'm from I live in Portland, Oregon. I'm from Vermont originally, and I've kind of spent my whole entire career just as an entrepreneur of sorts. Started out in kind of more media related projects and kind of got more into tech. And I first got involved with kind of blockchain and cryptocurrency around 2016. And then I've kind of explored lots of different projects. Cardano's been one that's kind of resonated with me the most. There's been a couple other ones I like as well, but I probably spend the most amount of my time in the Cardano community. And what attracted me to this rapid funding challenge kind of conversation or application is that I think the feedback loop between funding, creating, just like building is too long with the with the pace of innovation within the blockchain space. I think projects right now, they apply for funding and Catalyst with like a very grand vision of something they want to build. But by the time they want to build that, or they get to the point of building the big vision, what they actually wanted to build initially might be obsolete, or it might not make sense with the current context of the ecosystem anymore. So I really like the idea of rapid funding mechanisms. That's kind of like an agile Scrum approach to funding. So it would allow for you to make small proposals for modular pieces of infrastructure or problems you want to solve that might be able to be used by other people within the greater ecosystem. And then basically you get it funded, it's evaluated, and then if you want to continue on that path, you reapply for funding, or if there's a fork, you go a different way for funding. And I don't know if that all makes sense to everybody, but that's kind of the way I look at what we're here for.
Yeah, so keeping I suppose keeping options open for different, well, I suppose that's the title now, alternative.
Yeah, it allows, right, so it allows you, the rapid funding mechanism would allow for agile pivots when necessary. It would also allow for the opportunity to really track what the deliverables are and if those deliverables are actually being met, because it's very well-defined pockets of product that are being developed, I guess.
Yeah, so it's kind of like the difference between a waterfall approach to product development and agile.
Yep, that's how I look at it.
Beautiful.
That's kind of my background. Where I spend the most time is kind of just product development, and I really like agile Scrum approach to problems. Maybe that's just because I don't like to plan too far ahead, but.
Well, yeah. Well, it's knowing that you can deliver something and get paid for it is the crucial part of agile, as opposed to just having an endless scope creep or changing goals and visions. So yeah, that's cool. And what sort of experience have you had? What teams have you worked with? What sort of
within the Catalyst community? Or
anything's relevant to
I've been in a number of different startups. Most recently I had a mobile application called Numbolo that was in the Portland incubation experiment called the Pi Accelerator, and I mentor there now at that accelerator. I had a NFT DAO. I was a co-proposer for that proposal that was funded in Fund 3 for Project Catalyst. Created a film company called Red Tide Pictures, which is kind of like an action sports documentary company. Created a on-demand drone pilot booking platform called HoverTech, where like if you wanted to get aerial photos of like any sort of property, you would go online, you put in your address and book the pilot, and they would come up and take photos of your property for construction. I don't know, I like do all sorts of things, but I guess those are some random ones.
So you'd be good at getting into projects, seeing you've got the experience to know where projects are going awry, where problems may rise, and probably guide and analyze. And
I have, so I guess like my overall, I don't have, I guess my greatest expertise lies in like the product development side of things and kind of project management type. But overall, I have like a wide scope of general knowledge from anything from like UX design to business development to just making sure you actually are taking the right steps to set up a legal corporation correctly. But I wouldn't say I'm an expert in any of those, but I've gone through the process of all sorts of things like that.
Be kind of more specific, looking at what skills you would bring to the challenge team or what role you would play. I'm hearing a little bit more towards the project management side based on your experience.
From like my most, I guess like product development, project management is my, within the Agile framework is where I have the most experience. and then UX UI design too, a little bit, if that's necessary. But
going to be necessary. We've got. I think probably we need to define roles within the team as well, fairly quickly, and which candidate's going to be best to fit into which roles. So facilitating, project managing, some investigative roles and probing roles, and other things like that. So project manager is definitely a good one to have. I'm just browsing my notes at the same time. Anybody got any questions they want to jump in with for Tyler?
You say probate? Did I hear the word?
I didn't say probate, no, but I meant probing as in going into
probing.
projects.
Sorry, yeah.
Investigating, right?
Yeah. Investigating, yeah.
Well, that's Charles's. Sorry.
Hi, Len, go ahead.
Hi, Jonathan. Just to go back to something that Felix mentioned as a intention of the rapid funding challenge or mechanism, is that I think that continual funding or funding. Go ahead.
Sorry, Len. Actually, you've applied, haven't you? So
yes. Yeah, as well.
I'm sorry. Is this only for people who want to be part of the challenge team?
But you applied as well.
We're going around one by one, so you'll get a slot in a minute. If you've got any questions for Tyler at the moment, that's what we're hoping to pull out.
Okay.
So you're spreading the love around. Any questions directly for Tyler? How to draw the best out of him?
Sorry, you mentioned before the Scrum Agile approach. Have you got in mind all the roles like product owner, who are the shareholders, the stakeholders, who is the,
How does that fit within what we're doing here in the general Catalyst community? How would those roles be defined? I mean, so like the Scrum Master would be someone who's kind of like facilitating the conversation between maybe Catalyst Circle, the actual people building the product with each proposal, and maybe the general voting public, I suppose. Product owner in this sense is, I mean, I guess we have to define what the product is, because there's a couple different products. There's the actual product that the proposal submitted. This is kind of a product itself, the rapid funding mechanism. I mean, I'd have to kind of work out all those details, and then the stakeholders, I guess that's the general Catalyst community, right? Stakeholders would be the Catalyst community, the people who are actually investing in this project. We want to ensure that if we're facilitating the rapid funding of a proposal, that value is being delivered to the general community and they understand what that value is. And then they would have a chance to see what's happening, whether you approach it in like 4-week sprints or 2-week sprints. But periodically they would have a chance to see what's happening with this product and then say, yes, I like this, no, ask questions, etc. But am I answering your question a bit? Okay, cool.
So we noted down earlier things like data analysis, documentation and tracking, and then you've already talked about general technical skills and development skills. So I know you work with Steve Rowan, Steve Wittenstall on.
Yep.
And his documentation skills are legendary. So do you see a role for that sort of thing in the team as well? I mean,
yeah. I mean, I can help with that if that's needed, as far as documenting anything and GitHub and then creating Gitbook for that. I'm very familiar with that whole process. So.
Cracking. Good. So, Jarvis, if you've got your audio working, maybe Nori can put your questions to you. We're trying to document as well, so we're taking turns.
How about now? Am I hearable?
Yes,
Brilliant.
we hear
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the irony is, like I answered the call for like a technical person and my mic volume was turned down, right? So always, right? Like the plumber with the screwed up bathroom, or, like the doctor who's smoking. Look, what you need to do, is get healthy, right? And smoking cigars or something. So yeah,
Well,
I'm a
you
clown.
overcame the challenge, so maybe that makes
Uh-huh.
it worthwhile.
Yeah, right. I
You
have a
solved it.
can-do attitude and a proven record of tackling hard-hitting problems head on in real time. Mic drop.
Awesome. So why don't you jump in and tell us a little bit about yourself, why you want to join the challenge team, and maybe touch a little bit on your skill set and
Yeah,
what kind
right.
of role you envision yourself playing on the team.
Yeah, I mean, so I think the main thing was I'm fairly new to the community, and like for this round, I was interested in doing proposals, but I think the things that I'm really interested in are kind of meta to the things that are there. I want to thump on, the fact that we have Haskell, we have certain. So before I came to Cardano, in the way that I got here is I worked a little bit with Ethereum and Solidity, and I have a background as JavaScript person, but I've got production code in Python and Rust. I'm not a real Rust person. I just worked with people who wrote books. Actually, at that job, we worked with the Galois people. We had talks with them. We were not helpful for what they were doing. They were doing the Hackams project at that time. So there's a little bit of a security background. So not to put everyone to sleep, but getting rid of certain, like having type safety, for instance, right? Formal verifications to the extent that they bear, right? So I've been working the last 10 years as a senior software engineer, splitting my time between DC and San Francisco. But I have a degree in philosophy and a minor in chemistry. And the way I started, and I got most of the way through an MBA, and I stopped because I was a top performer at the sales organization I was at. And I was working 60 hours a week and going to school 30 hours a week or 20 hours a week, right? I was like, this is dumb. I already make more money than these other people with the degree already. And I'm giving myself colon cancer, right? Like, it's dumb. I'm failing at both. So I walked away, but I really enjoyed it. But the way I got into code was I wanted to move into entrepreneurial roles, and I thought, I could either spend more time wining and dining factory owners in Pakistan and hinterland China, or I could get a laptop and learn to code, because golly gee, one really smart guy with a great idea could just code up a whole value added thing that millions of people would buy. Of course, that's dumb, right? It doesn't work that way. However, that's how I got into it. I got an O'Reilly book and started making websites and et cetera, et cetera. So I went from the very front end, HTML, CSS, back to, I've run phishing campaign, legal ones. I was paid to do it. I've done, I've worked with 3 letters here, and I've worked in the Valley with projects that are fairly hairy. I've done so more recently doing cloud stuff, right? So I mean, I really apologize, everybody. The orchestration bits, the DevOps bit, like DevOps are kind of like the new unicorn, right? Like you can make yourself and everybody else happier. Like you do one thing one time and it'll last for maybe the next 3 to 5 years, and then you don't have to mess with it anymore if you get it set up right. So I've spent most of my time in like AWS and Google, and I pick up technologies fairly well and apply them fairly quickly. So currently it's Haskell. I'm in the Plutus Pioneers program, the one that just is finishing. Lars is on vacation, so I think we have our next meeting, our last meeting next week. Yeah, that's an awful lot for a small question, but that should give you some idea.
Awesome, thank you. Amongst all of those, what kind of role would you envision yourself playing?
Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't address that one. Thank you. I don't have a great answer for that. I think because I've worked in like PM roles, so I've only ever worked at startups on purpose because I came in wanting to see how the sausage is made. I wanted to have an informed technical opinion, strong technical opinion, and not depend on someone else because I've seen that go badly for other tech entrepreneurs. And so, but you always wear different hats, right? So, you know, I've been the lead developer, the product owner, the project manager, you know, like just whatever has to be done. So I think for me, the more interesting thing is where can I add value regardless of title, right? Like I am really good at cleaning toilets. So if you guys have virtual toilets that I can just like zoom into and give a scrub, if that's useful, you know, like I can do that. But I think for me, the main thing is I want to see how the Catalyst sausage is made, right? So if that's coding, I mean, obviously I think implementation is going to be an issue, right? So I almost certainly can help with that, but I think there's going to be a lot of, you know, sort of tangential things, like there's always minutia, right? And that's what will make the project really good or okay. And I think to end on that, the real shiny, attractive object here is switching from top down to having these types of teams that investigate and sort of prove out what's going to be a great idea or not be a great idea, right? So like this bottom up approach, I'm keenly interested in this and invested in making this work, because I believe at a deep level that this is the right way to do things. And I would like to do whatever I can to make that, you know, true.
Awesome.
Maybe
Thank you for that.
One very short thing I would like to add there is also that, for example, the incentives for the challenge team, let's say, for example, the financial side, it's almost nothing. There will be $2,500 worth in ADA for the whole challenge team. So when we have 5 people for 3 months, so this would mean 500 ADA for everybody for 3 months. So it's nothing. What it is about is defining a new role. So really by saying, okay, just what you said, is bottom up, that people from the community step up and design the new role of a challenge team. It's the very first fund where we will have this pilot of a challenge team. And it would be up to you to set the standards already, to set a level. What does a challenge team needs to do, is able to do, have to do. And on what you discover, on what you set up for standards, for level, the next generations of challenge team have to orient on this. So maybe this is another incentive, which maybe it's even a little, I don't want to say it's more than money, but from my side, yes, it's more than money. So yes.
Yeah, I agree. It's more than 500 ADA, right? I mean, it's lasting impact and being at the ground floor of something. So yeah, 100%. That's where I'm at.
Any questions from the room for Jarvis? All right, thank you, Jarvis.
My pleasure. Thank you.
That's really good.
Then we have Martin and Tim as well, who signed up. Who wants to go first?
Yeah, I can talk. If it's okay.
Yeah, go first, Martin. Go for it, Martin.
Okay, so hi, I'm Martin. I'm currently living in Berlin, originally from Slovakia. And I've been working as a software developer for most of my life, or professional life. So that's about 10 years. And right now, like how I got interested in this challenge is I'm actually trying to do a proposal for Catalyst in 2 categories. One is for Prism, the identity challenge, or the how to reach people, and the other one is proposal outreach. So how to get people to submit more ideas. And my proposal or idea is basically how to combine these. So the idea is to incentivize people to like publicly with their identity, like we here, just say that I'm here, I have these ideas and I want to accomplish them. And then create a platform where people who share those ideas can learn how to help. So that's, I think, where it intersects with the goal of this challenge. So it's basically another alternative way to, like, I'm more interested in getting people to openly share ideas and create like small communities that develop those ideas. And like the way it gets funded eventually, there is already a lot of options, but this like first stage, like how people with similar ideas find each other and start developing those ideas. That's like the thing that interests me most, and what I would like to like. I'm building it. It's like independently of the Catalyst. I would like to integrate it with the Cardano ecosystem because I really like where this network is going. But like the ideas work with anything. I can build it without any blockchain. But I just think that it adds a lot of value to be like future-proof and to have like your own integrated payment system that can't be interfered with. It's a nice thing to have for the future.
How long have you been in and around Catalyst?
Around Catalyst, I've just found out about it like last month. So I've been holding some Cardano for 3 years and been a bit following like the development. Right now, I'm very interested in how the smart contracts turn out. So I hope I get into Alonso soon. I've just registered for the, I don't know, I got an email to register for the testnet. So I will have a look hopefully soon how that is. And yeah, so I'm very new to the community. Like my passion is this, like bring ideas in between people and get them to develop them. That's something that I was interested for a longer time. And now I found, I set myself to go for it and try to implement like the vision that I had for this problem. And yeah, I'm interested. I can link you the proposal. It's still very rough, and if it is something that would be useful for your challenge, that would be nice. And I'm open to any feedback. It's very market-based and optimistic, and so.
Have you done any proposals anywhere else, or been involved in like well, there's nothing quite like Catalyst anywhere, I don't think, but in any sort of venture capital,
yeah, I've been
incubators or things
part
like that.
of 2 incubators, but then like I have 3 kids, so then it was a bit over for a time with startups. And but now I would like to get back into something more of this kind, because it was interesting. But I've very, as I said, I worked with startups for about 1.5 years, mostly in a freelance role as like one of the developers and proposers of the idea. But it's like there are a lot more qualified people in this regard.
Cool. And within this sort of challenge team setting, what do you think your strengths would lie in? You're trying to guide other teams into in their project development, as well as secure their funding and finding out how to make things sustainable. I mean, I know as a freelancer, you're always juggling these sorts of budget issues.
Oh, yeah, I'm not sure. Oh, I think like my role is mostly, or what I think I can bring is like my perspective on how I think that the solution that you are looking for would be, but I'm very biased in this regard because I obviously right now think that my solution is the best, and I'm looking for people to contradict that. So, so that is something that I would welcome from anyone to like maybe help me figure out like what are the weak points in my solution, and maybe in the process we can find what the what would be the appropriate solution for what you are trying to do, which is not the same thing. Like what I understood that you are trying more like to attract full-time commitment partners that would develop actual projects. Like my goal is more like get people interested in the development. Like what you are trying to do is like step 5 in my process, where you have a team already together and you have like an actual design goal and you are implementing that. I'm interested in the ideation stage of the project.
Very good. So anybody got any questions I'd like to put to Martin from Wider? Otherwise, I think we've just got one more in the room. Len seems to have disappeared.
Patrick was well had to leave, but I gave him the email address, and so it would be Tim. Yes, Mr. Cooper.
Hello. Hi all.
Hello.
I'm Tim. I'm from the UK. Quite a private person, unfortunately, so you probably won't see me on camera if the meetings are being recorded. But I am here. I'm very interested in getting more involved in Cardano and the whole ecosystem, and particularly Catalyst, which I see as a huge proponent to the future success of Cardano and the ability to reach the goals that they espouse, which I agree with and I think are brilliant. My involvement in Cardano is fairly recent, probably the last year or so. I started exploring the project mostly from a technical point of view. My background is very much in development and programming. Really liked what I was reading compared to the sort of existing big blockchains, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and so on, and the crypto sort of community and economy as a whole, I guess. There's a lot of distasteful parts to me personally, and I think Cardano avoids a lot of that, and also avoids a lot of the technical pitfalls of these previous blockchains, particularly things like the Ethereum gas fees, and the fact that you can pay them and not have your transaction go through, which I think is mad. But yeah, that's why I'm interested in Cardano originally, and then I picked up on Catalyst and what they were doing there, and it's to me it's mind-blowing. It's such a huge part of Cardano, and I think once the wider crypto world figures it out and realizes what we're doing here, they'll be very impressed or jealous, probably more likely, as we'll see on Twitter. And in terms of Catalyst, so far my involvement has been as part of a committee alongside Nori, who I recognise there. Hello, Nori. And we were the search committee for the general ADA holder representative that sits on the Catalyst circle. And since then, we transitioned, since electing our representative, our first one, we transitioned into a support committee. We recognised that all of the other representatives had existing communities that they could go back to, get ideas from, and just talk to. And, you know, he had some million people to try and get ideas and opinions off of. So yeah, that's my involvement in Cardano so far. Obviously, I'm a developer and I'm very keen to create projects on it as well. I've just completed the Plutus Pioneers program through the second cohort. I think we've got one more Q&A. It's like an afters one. And to be honest, I haven't finished the last lecture yet, but please don't tell Lars that. Once he's back from holiday, I'll have finished it by then, I'm sure. I'm very keen to create some projects. I've got some ideas in mind. Probably not so fit for Project Catalyst. They're more experimental things that I would be quite happy to watch spectacularly fail, which I'd rather not do with other people's money. If you know, it's better not to do that anyway. In terms of this mission team, the rapid funding, I can't say I've got a lot of experience or knowledge that is particularly relevant to that. If we have to build platforms or design UIs or implement stuff, then maybe I can help. But apart from that, really, I would be relying on my general problem solving and problem finding skills. I unfortunately tend to be quite a negative person, and in work, that manifests itself in being able to find the problems before they happen. And I like to think that's a good thing. Generally, I try to fix them. That's it, really. I'm not sure what else I have to say. Any questions? Please go ahead.
I may be speaking out of turn, but I just wanted to say I completely respect the problem finding abilities.
Yes, especially before they appear. Very important. You might be a good chess player, Tim.
I was talking to a pessimist in the community, and I just go there because I'm an optimist, and I just need someone to to smack me down every now and then. Much needed.
Yeah, so some of my best friends are hopelessly optimistic, and they use me to bring themselves down.
We concluded that vision is, a close partner of delusion. So every now and then, you just need a realist to step in and. Right. So the experience that you've had in the past, and certainly working on the committee to pick an ADA holder, you're obviously involved in the Catalyst community heavily. Anything you see about the current funding model for projects in particular that you'd like to steer towards, problems that you can see we need solving quickly?
Yeah, I mean, I heard it would be nice if we could get some more rapid funding mechanisms in place. I'm not.
This would be awesome, yeah.
I heard it could be useful. What that would look like.
Sorry.
You're right, mate.
Negative.
I don't know what that would look like, honestly. First thought off the top of my head would be some sort of protocol whereby a accepted project that had been granted the funding but hadn't received it yet, maybe a protocol where they could request an advance or maybe even an extension if they realized they were going to go way over budget and the whole project was going to fail because they lacked $1,000 extra or something. I'm not sure. Yeah. But I'd be. I mean, I guess that's the goal of the challenge, right? Is to ideate on this stuff, and I'd love to discuss it and hear other people's ideas and how that might work.
Yeah, it resonates very much with what Tyler was saying about more agile approach to funding, an agile funding model as opposed to a waterfall, just like in projects. That's good. I kind of hijacked your questions, Nori. Have you got any you wanted to put in there?
I think Tim has kind of addressed background and kind of maybe a little more. I know that you mentioned you're really good at problem solving, but also finding problems ahead of time. How do you see that like translating into the role that you would play on the team when you have, say, 20 proposals coming in and this team is responsible for either selecting which ones get funded or are kind of keeping track of how each team is doing and being able to understand their challenges or problems or things that they're facing?
Well, to be honest, I can be as savage or polite as you'd like me to be. But if I see a problem, I will let if there's a problem, I'll let the person who has the power to deal with it, I'll let them know and, you know, help them solve it if I can. As far as how that's cropped up in work life, in my last job, I did end up sort of being the you know, the test, basically, that passed the projects by me first, just to make sure that yes, this is feasible, yes, it is sane, that we accept this, or that we agree to do this and stuff. Mostly because they got annoyed with me pointing it out, and then it will go wrong, and then me go, you know, shrugging and sort of, yeah, you know. Catch blind spots. Possibly jealous, possibly. You know, I'm not some mastermind genius by any means, but yeah, that does tend to be my habit, is finding the holes.
Very valuable skill. And I also think having a technical background, for those of you who have it, is very useful, just because some of the proposals will be technical in nature, and being able to parse that and explain that is going to be a pretty important role, I think. Any other questions from the room for Tim? Are there any other candidates in the room that showed up that we haven't called them?
No, I don't think so. It might be an idea just to maybe throw up some freeform
I'm gonna
discussion.
have another go. Sorry.
Oh yeah, go on then, Adjei.
I think I'll try a different sales pitch. Firstly, I'm 65 years old, so I've retired and got plenty of time on my hands, which I don't know how that fits into this presentation, but commitment is vital is the right word. I don't know. Okay, so I've been in the construction business all my life, project management. The building trade is probably the worst trade for handling money, coming in within budget, and there are team elements, but all builders and architects and designers and clients fight with each other, probably more so than in many areas of business. What I could bring to the Rapid Finance management team is accounting. And I mean serious accounting. I cannot understand any of the financial mechanisms that are in Catalyst. I think there's a lot there. It's incredible. And it's been a year's worth of work trying to understand what the blockchain, what protocols are about, and decentralization of autonomous organizations. But what Tim failed to point out was I don't hear any criticisms of the financial system of Catalyst. You know, no one's prepared to stick their neck out and say this is not going to work. because it's not going to help. You know, it's experimental. But I think there needs to be some very serious, I was going to say proposal, it's not proposal, management. It's all about management. And so I think I can bring an awful lot to that. I mean, you can ask me any question you like. Sorry, I've not got video up. But I'm on a very, I live in a, as I say, I'm rural. I live on a farm in South Italy, and internet connection is very poor. As soon as I put on video, it all goes funny.
That's cool.
But I'm quite happy to show my face when things get serious. I'm not afraid of anything.
Cool. Okay. Well, I think we've got a form to apply, so you can stick your name down. Yeah, maybe now if we just open up some general discussion, everyone feel to pitch in where you need about, you know, what sort of rapid funding, alternative funding challenges could we set that will really, you know, handle the problems that we've already identified and help smooth some of the you know, grease some of the wheels in these teams that are struggling.
So I have a question about the question. Are you asking about the funding mechanism itself, or the kind of challenges that someone could set out to solve that would benefit from receiving funding in a different manner?
Very good.
Yeah, so any challenge team, as I understand it, will be responsible for setting challenges that solve this problem. And so you'll be guiding people who put project proposals that do solve the problem, guiding them on you know, whether it's actually going to solve the problem or not. So if we're just talking about the problems that we see, that sort of covers maybe the project proposal we might end up seeing in front of us. So how do we guide all this forward? Fixing the issue with people not being able to leave their jobs because they don't have the stability that they need. If that was, you know, someone pitching a problem solved around that area, what might that look like? What would you be happy to see? Anything you can pitch in on that? Jarvis, yeah, just jump in now, open mics.
Yeah, sorry, just quick question, because I don't understand I don't understand the problem, and the specific part that I don't understand is, so I understand that we want to make it easier, like get people into the ecosystem. It's more sustainable where they're able to be paid. What is causing the 3 months delay?
So the life cycle of a proposal is you submit.
Got it. Right. So they're top loading all the work before there can ever be any payment.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
It's
Thank you.
really the process of submitting, getting reviewed, getting the CAs involved, and then people voting. That whole period takes time, and Catalyst used to overlap, which shortened the cycle, but that got so busy and confusing that it's now separated and becomes serial. And that's even making the problem worse because the time between funds is now longer.
Got it. I wasn't sure what was causing that piece. So sorry, but I needed that before I could make sense of anything else.
I think that we should also come back a little bit to what Alison addressed before, to say, okay, this challenge is really much more addressed, and also the solutions which should be implemented in this challenge to projects who really aim to build a sustainability in the ecosystem. Because once you can say, for example, okay, you submit a proposal and you simply want to, let's say, build a product, and you set a certain budget in the proposal and you get funded, you build a product, you are finished. So let's say, okay, yeah, you have done your job and you have no interest anymore to stay in the ecosystem. But what happens now if you want to stay in the ecosystem and out of the product, you build a whole project? You find collaborators who join the project. you create a whole own ecosystem. And now there's a problem, for example, that you have a gap between proposers, which are highly engaged in the ecosystem, and voters. So those who vote on the submitted proposals. There's a huge gap. And the people in the ecosystem, they are not the people who have millions of ADAs and voting on the proposals, because we have a plutocratic voting system. So this means you have projects in the ecosystem who are doing a daily, weekly, monthly job, highly engaged, and sometimes not even being funded. And when you have the risk of not being funded in just one funding round, that means that you have to try a run without any resources for 6 months. And this is extremely dangerous for a project who wants to build certain sustainability in the ecosystem.
Yeah, so, I mean, the idea that I was starting to flesh out, but I'm not sure it's an answer to your question, is that in one fund, an entrepreneur or a team that wanted to have a full-time job developing their idea and turning it into a company could apply for a much larger amount of money, the amount of money that would fund them for, say, a year, or even better would be to have a plan that would fund them to self-sufficiency. But rather than being granted a whole lump sum of money at the time their project was approved, assuming it was voted on and approved, we could create a mechanism where the funds would be approved by the voters, but would be allocated over the course of a year or 18 months or 2 months based on the successful achievement of milestones that the proposing team puts in their proposal. And so then you'd need an entity like maybe the challenge team itself that would be the auditors and the overseers, or perhaps it would be a separate entity, to assess that the milestones had been reached and then allocate or distribute the funds that were part of the money that had already been voted on and put into escrow, if you will, in the initial fund. So you could have a team that would be funded for a much larger period of time that would be approved in one fund, but then the funds would be slowly released over time based on the accomplishment of milestones.
Exactly.
And the voting accordingly. I mean, it has to be decentralized.
Right. The proposal would be voted on the same way as any other proposal. It's just that instead of receiving all of the funds in one lump sum, the funds would be dispersed over a period of time in response to the achievement of certain goals or milestones that the team would have to explain clearly.
Exactly.
Yes, the team explains and the community votes.
And there you touch another very important point, for example, Alison, also when you say there are already some solutions. So normally a challenge is designed, there's a challenge, and everybody can submit proposals. All of the proposals are based on problem statements. What is your problem? What is your solution? This is like a proposal is designed. The goal with this challenge is also to create a new environment in which proposals maybe can address their proposals in another way and don't say, okay, maybe it's problem-based. Maybe it's more like an implementation on a problem which is well known already. Because we don't need, again, a challenge where people can, again, come up with a bunch of problem statements when we know already quite well about the problems. So one idea would be, for example, to set up some pre-designed problems and to ask for implementations from the proposers. On the other side, we had already some conversations also with the community, and we say, okay, what could the challenge team define totally as a new role as well? And when you look on the voting or on the funding process, when we look on the two most time-consuming processes, there's once the CA process, which takes a lot of time, and the voting process, which takes a lot of time. One idea would be as well to keep on the beginning the challenge on a very low budget and to give the challenge team the whole power about the challenge. It's a challenge team who assess the proposals, and it's a challenge team who select the implementations. So you can guarantee an extreme fast decision-making and funding distribution system. You have your legitimacy of being, let's say, democratic anyway, because the submitted challenge is only taking action when voted upfront from the voters. So you vote once, and then for this time period, you don't have to vote anymore because you voted them once already. And the challenge team, their responsibility later is to take this action, to report, track, documentate what is happening, and submit the next challenge, for example. So that in the next round, the voters can vote again for the challenge, but what happens in the challenge with the budget, this is totally managed by the challenge team itself. So when again, the implementation comes up, and this implementation is considered by the challenge team as, let's say, a good possibility, the challenge team would be directly able to fund this project. So it's a whole new kind of governance model as well, also to create a totally new design of challenge next to all the existing challenges. Because if we have all challenges working exactly on the same design, it's quite difficult to compare and to explore or evolve a new design. So somehow there needs to be an alternative design where we can compare the different challenges also with each other.
So the big risk is that you don't get funded each time. And so removing that risk by putting the Catalyst team there instead helps a lot. I think maybe working through an example as well of a project. So perhaps you talk about Gimba Labs. Would that help? So you've got Gimba Labs, which is a Fund 2 funded project, which was to create a developer community in and around Catalyst that would really bring people forward, educate them, onboard them. That would be an incubator for lots of different apps and projects. And so you've got people jumping into that full time from paid jobs or not. And then they win that initial funding, which was a big tranche of funding. So that was good. They had some space to run then. The next round of funding, they've got some more proposals put in place to take them on further. But then the vote fails that second round of funding. So then they've got to find a way of sustaining themselves, their team, and also all these little projects that they've incubated that they've become the support resource for, have the potential of fritting away if no one's got any time to spend on them. So it's kind of destabilizes the whole ecosystem. So what Felix is suggesting could be a really strong way of solving that.
Yeah.
So almost like we need a pipeline or a funnel as projects develop and grow in size and get more relevance. Like we have Catalyst is almost like the angel seed round where we're giving little projects a little bit of money. And then you have something like Occam on the other side that does IDOs and can do a big multi-million-dollar funding round for people with really great ideas. But there's no way to bridge that kind of gap. So if we can fill in that pipeline with mechanisms or ways of continuing projects that are successful and push them down to eventually maybe an IPO or an IDO or some other mechanism to really become a real company, that might be a really great way to kind of visualize how we build out the ecosystem.
Could I jump in?
Yeah, go Tyler.
Yeah. So I guess I'm thinking about Gimba Labs. And I think maybe like what is the reason they didn't receive funding? It seems that the general voters maybe didn't understand the value that was actually being created within Gimba Labs. And they voted on other proposals that seemed to, I guess, hype-wise or marketed, they seem to have more value with the way they're presented within Catalyst, the voting mechanism. Because Gimba Labs offers a lot of something else I'm thinking of, like, how does the treasury itself work? There's the fees are collected, they go into the treasury and they get distributed. And those fees originated from staking. They go into the treasury, they get distributed based off of voting, based off of how much ADA you have. How do we remove those gaps? Does Gimba Labs have a stake pool themselves?
Yes,
They
have one.
They do.
Got one now. Yeah.
But
Okay, so then that makes me like, I have another. It has to do with marketing, like a marketing issue, I guess.
exactly.
If you look at Gimba Labs, they're creating real value. They have one stake pool, but I don't think a lot of people are maybe joining it. Maybe there are a lot more people joining it now, but then you look at something like Meld Labs, who I don't really know what Meld Labs is doing, but I know they have like 9 stake pools, and they were quickly able to fill all those stake pools up and get funding. And like delegating to a stake pool that's based on a project that you believe in, that in itself is a vote, but you're shortcutting the whole Catalyst treasury mechanism. So is there a mechanism that we could create that would allow projects to have a cut, like a direct cut of stake pools? Maybe similar to something like what MinSwap did with the FISPO, the Fair Initial Stake Pool Offering, where MinSwap was, I guess, but they generated a lot of hype because of the nature of their organization, but they generated a lot of hype for their project, and then they partnered with, I think it was like 10 different stake pools or 20 different stake pools, and they helped all of these stake pools get delegators, and then they also, as they got delegators, all these stake pools also rewarded MinSwap with some of the fees. So I guess what I'm seeing is that right now it's a long process, and if we can cut out some of the gap between stake pool, treasury, voter, and shorten that process between stake pool and project that should be funded, then that might be an approach to think about.
Exactly.
I really like that.
I think the stake pool route is very valid. It's definitely a built-in mechanism for fees to be spread around the community. And right now it's kind of targeting stake pool operators, but I think there's an opportunity for stake pool operators to partner with projects and collect delegation to benefit both sides. So most projects don't have the technical expertise to run their own stake pool, but there's a lot of small stake pool operators who don't have the delegation to actually make it a viable business. And those two combined could make a very powerful kind of ecosystem. So if we had a mechanism of attracting small stake pool operators and projects together to do a joint venture kind of, and then maybe if Cardano Foundation or IOG really likes that idea and they stake 3 million ADA, it's instantly a viable stake pool that's generating 100,000 ADA a year for projects. That's a mechanism. And another idea that it's kind of, I'm trying to throw in for Fund 7 is stake pool as a service, just for this particular use case. So for projects that don't have the technical expertise to run a stake pool, they should have an option to say, okay, you're a professional stake pool operation, you can run it, and we'll split up the operator keys versus the owner keys, and then the owner gets the stake pool profits and the operator gets the operating fees. And there's probably ways of doing that really safely, but it's a technical challenge that I don't think has been solved really well yet. There's a whole trust issue there that we need to make it trustless so that it just happens and everyone's happy with how it's working. And I think that's the major challenge that I'd love to see addressed for Fund 7 to kind of attack that problem.
And then I think,
can I add something?
Yes, please.
So I saw one proposal is for basically retroactively allocating funds, which is, I think, a nice clean solution that can be like adjusted in a way that like we are basically looking for ways to fund projects outside of the treasury, but in a way that is supported by the treasury if possible. So what we can do is just like create an approved like Kickstarter like or something like GoFundMe platform where people who are building something just say that we have done this and we would like to get this much money from it. And they collect it independently from other people, just crowdsource it from people out of the community who are interested in the project. Could be stake pool operators, could be just small investors. But with the like the system that would be in place is that if you go through like an approved process, you can apply in the next Fund 7 retroactively to have the people who gave money outside of the system will get some of their money back from the Catalyst community as a reward for finding an actual project that got executed outside of the system and was successful in a way. And the people that invested in it get rewarded by the Catalyst ecosystem. I don't know if that was clear now, but basically you would just crowdsource it and then the Catalyst ecosystem would refund your part of your crowdfunded or what you donated independently. The Catalyst community would give it back to you as a reward for independently looking for projects and financing them. So that way you create a new category of like small investor that looks for projects outside of the Catalyst system, but with the potential that it gets refunded by the Catalyst if it's successful.
Hey, I like that idea a lot. Like, what if it was kind of like a prediction market or prediction funding mechanism, where it's like if you can identify something that you know is successful, you fund it through a smart contract, like through some sort of smart contract where you lock that it gets funded. But then if it turns out you're right that is successful, not only do you get your return, your original funding back, you'd also get additional reward,
exactly,
like some sort of based on interest or some sort of
a SPAC
automated market maker. Yeah,
right.
That's really cool.
But
Special
overall,
purpose acquisition.
But overall, the challenge team should not only focus on, let's say, 1 or 2 projects. The ideally case would say select, for example, 5 projects with a total different approach. For example, predicting, like you said, Taylor, predictable markets, automated market makers, crowdfunding, whatnot. Pitch different projects, already pre-calculated that maybe 3 or 5 may fail. We agree with this already, and simply have a look already which one evolve in the ecosystem, because we have to figure out how they fit into the ecosystem at least. Because each theory is great, but the most of them never survive the first contact with the reality. So we have to figure out which one at least can be really used in the ecosystem. So not focus on only one, figure out several, ask for implementations instead of problem-based proposals, steward those proposals, and implement them in the Catalyst process. I think in the ideally case, something like this maybe.
I have a question about that, Felix and everybody. I mean, would it not fit with this sort of Kickstarter type approach? And I'm not sure about exactly how to juggle the money, but an investment via the Kickstarter type, vehicle would count as a vote, right? So you would have a system where the community was voting, via ADA for the projects that seemed to be most relevant. I mean, we've already talked about the problem of, marketing, right? So it could just be whoever has the best marketing gets the best Kickstarter, gets the most ADA. But, problems aside, it could be a mechanism that is then a self-driving organic thing right? That doesn't have to be handheld forever, right? With like direct hands-on human oversight and actual management, if that makes sense.
I think that should be the goal. With like, it should be like a fluid, decentralized funding process for everything. Because right now it's really kind of like, okay, it's time to vote. Okay, it's time to put in your proposal. Okay, everything's very regimented in timeframes. But what if it was a very fluid process where it's like you have an idea, you partner with this stake pool Kickstarter campaign. If people like your idea, they stake towards your idea in a predictive way. It's like, I predict this is going to be successful. It's evaluated on 4-week sprints. If it looks like this project's dying off, the people restake to something else they think is successful. And it's all kind of this like big game. I think right now we're defining like a solution when I think Felix, what you're getting at is we want to ask questions to guide the overall community to come towards conclusions that we think are going to be most beneficial to the overall ecosystem. But
so much more that the challenge team takes the lead of creating the environment where people can build the solutions, and you make sure that this environment is really designed for those people. And
so yeah, I was just going to say, unfortunately, I would love to keep participating in this conversation all night for me, but I do need to drop off. So can I just quickly say it's nice to meet everyone, and I hope to connect along the next steps. I don't know if there's any.
Yes, for sure there will be next steps. We will contact you for sure.
Okay.
Are you going to be making minutes, Alison? Who's taking minutes of this very good session?
Yeah, I think Jarvis has been doing that in real time.
Jarvis on paper.
And in the chat.